Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here. And in this video, I want to look at the chart of El Chapo, Mexican drug lord. Guys, don't forget to hit the like button and please subscribe if you have not already. Okay, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. That's what he looked like. Funny looking guy. I don't know, interesting. In any case, all right. Joaquin Archibaldo Guzman Loera, commonly known as El Chapo. He's a Mexican former drug lord and a former leader of the Sinaloa cartel, an international crime syndicate. He's considered to have been one of the most powerful drug traffickers in the world. Born in Sinaloa and raised in a poor farming family, he endured physical abuse at the hands of his father and also entered the drug trade through his father, helping him grow marijuana for local dealers during his early adulthood. He began working with actor Luis Palma Salazar in the 70s, one of the nation's rising drug lords. He helped Salazar move routes, map routes to move drugs through Sinaloa and into the United States. He later supervised logistics for Gallardo, one of the nation's leading kingpins in the mid-80s. But Guzman founded his own cartel in 1988 after Gallardo's arrest. He oversaw operations whereby mass cocaine, methamphetamines, marijuana, and heroin were produced, smuggled, and distributed throughout the United States and Europe, the world's largest users. He achieved this by pioneering the use of distribution cells and long-range tunnels near borders, which enabled him to export more drugs to the United States than any other trafficker in history. Guzman's leadership of the cartel also brought him immense wealth and power. Forbes ranked him as one of the most powerful people in the world between 2009 and 2013, while drug enforcement in his administration estimated that he matched the influence and wealth of Pablo Escobar, who I read his chart as well. Guzman was first captured in 1993 in Guatemala, was extradited and sentenced to 20 years in prison in Mexico for murder and drug trafficking. He bribed prison guards and escaped from a federal maximum security prison in 2001. His status as a fugitive resulted in $8.8 million combined reward from Mexico and the U.S. for information leading to his capture, and he was arrested in Mexico in 2014. He escaped prior to the formal sentencing 2015 through a tunnel dug by associates into his jail cell. He was recaptured following a shootout in January 2016 and extradited to the U.S. a year later. In 2019, he was found guilty of a number of criminal charges related to his leadership of his cartel and sentenced to life imprisonment and incarcerated in ADX Florence, Colorado, USA. All right. So we're going to try and breeze through his life so it doesn't take too long. So he's born in a poor family and rural community in Sinaloa, Mexico. His parents were blah, blah, blah. For many generations, his family lived in La Tuna. His father was officially a cattle rancher, as were most in that area, according to some sources. However, he might have also been an opium poppy farmer. Let's see here. He had brothers and sisters. He had 3 unnamed older brothers who reportedly died of natural causes when he was very young. A few details are known about his upbringing. He sold oranges, dropped out of school early, and he was functionally illiterate. He was known for being a practical joker, enjoyed playing pranks on his friends, his family when he was young. He was regularly beaten, and he sometimes fled to his maternal grandfather's house to escape treatment. However, he stood up to his father to protect his younger siblings from being beaten. It is possible that Guzman incurred his father's wrath by trying to stop him from beating them. His mother, however, was his foundation of emotional support. The nearest school to his home was about 60 miles away. He was taught by traveling teachers during his early years. With few opportunities for employment, he turned to cultivation of opium poppy, a common practice among locals. So they sold poppy, he sold marijuana, and his father would spend most of the money that they made, that he helped them make, on liquor and women, in return with no money. Typical, right? Typical fathers. No, I'm just kidding. Tired of his father's mismanagement, Guzman cultivated his own marijuana plantation at the age of 15 with his cousins, and he supported his family with marijuana. I mean, nice to support his family. You know, marijuana is probably the least harmful drug, so-called drug, you know, that, you know, even less than alcohol, really. All things considered. If it's unadulterated, if it's pure, it's clean. It's certainly much less violent and destructive. All right. He was kicked out of his house and went to live with his grandfather. He gained the nickname El Chapo, which is slang for shorty. He was 5'6" and stocky. Most people in Badiraguato worked in the poppy fields. Let's see. He left his hometown in search of greater opportunities through his uncle, one of the pioneers of the Mexican drug trafficking. And then he joined in his 20s. He joined organized crime. So, all right. So he started in the drug trade, and let's see. During the 80s, leading crime syndicate was the Guadalajara cartel. And then I think he got arrested, the leader, and they divided up the territory. And so, all right, so let's see. If any of the drug shipments were not on time, Guzman would simply kill the smugglers himself by shooting them in the head. Nice way to solve the problems. Just kill anyone who's a problem. Right? Okay. Those around him learned that cheating him or going with other competitors, even if they offer better prices, was unwise. The leaders of the Guadalajara cartel, like Guzman's business acumen, right? Pretty straightforward business acumen. Anyone who does wrong, you shoot them. Let's see. Guzman worked as a chauffeur before being put in charge of logistics. Basically, he worked his way up, and he was brutal and ruthless and a boss man. And at some point, he was able to become the head of the his own cartel. I'm just gonna really skip through this because I want to not make it too long. There were a lot of drug wars. A lot of people were killed. But Guzman grew his cartel into the biggest in Mexico, and he was able to buy off nearly everyone. And he even sold out some of his own top officials, workers, top like lieutenants, officers, whatnot, in his cartel to the DEA to appease them so that he could continue going on. But he also sold out his rival cartel members to the DEA as well. He was very shrewd and masterminding in that sense, that he was working with authorities, meanwhile avoiding them and evading them and thriving and growing. So yeah. He was very good at hiding and escaping and running, and both from the rival cartels, which were trying to kill him while he was trying to kill them, his cartel and their cartel, and as well as the Mexican police and army and the DEA, the American drug enforcement agency. Right? He had to play them all. He had to mastermind the whole situation. And he was very good at it. He got the rival cartel to shoot up a car they thought he was in, and it was actually a Cardinal. And that sparked a huge backlash. And I'm not sure if it worked out in his favor, because the government really clamped down and started arresting everyone. But probably the rival cartel more so than his. He was arrested and he escaped. And he arrested again and escaped. He expanded his empire into methamphetamines because there was an opportunity to do that. He cut out the middlemen. The cocaine obviously came from Colombia, but they were able to traffic it through Mexico, get their fingers on it, gain a share of the money. Methamphetamines, marijuana, heroin, cocaine. Deep long tunnels through the border. That's how they did a lot of it. But also planes, and they divided it up, like, so small shipments everywhere. They estimate he surpassed the influence and reach of Pablo Escobar. They named him public enemy #1. So he was very, very powerful. Biggest drug lord of all time. Godfather of the drug world. Produced methamphetamines. That's like Breaking Bad. That's what they did in that show, methamphetamines. So they were producing meth and doing everything else. He escaped and had wars and escaped again. And he had a bunch of wives and a bunch of kids, and some of his kids died. A lot of his family were either arrested or shot in drug wars. I think he might have had like 7 or even 9 kids. I'm not sure. Eventually caught and sent and kept in prison in Colorado. I think probably the American prison system is a bit more harder to escape than the Mexican prison system, because he escaped in Mexico twice. He did not escape so far that we know of in America. 3rd arrest, so he's arrested 3 times. Let's see. There's a lot, obviously I'm skipping over because it's not that important. This details all about his wives and kids and all that, who were a part of the drug clan. They helped him. Okay, so let's look at the astrology. So he's an Aries sun, conjunct Venus in the 3rd quadrant, 4th whole sign house. So 3rd, 4th influence. Aries sun is exalted. Okay, so Aries sun is great for leadership. It's great for initiating projects, starting things, leadership. It is potentially violent, but in good dignity. Aries sun really make great bosses, great leaders, very inspiring. They can really light up the room. They're just like fireballs, just so much energy, so much spark. And yeah, people really like their energy a lot. They're just very passionate, very lively, very full of physical vitality. Go, 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 go. And Sun conjunct Venus, that Sun conjunct Venus can weaken the Sun, but obviously the Sun is very strong in Aries, so not so much, right? It does create a nice personality. And Sun conjunct Venus are very likable, and so this, I think, is like he can be a real fireball or very aggressive and snappy and like hot-headed and whatnot, but the Venus also gives him a lot of appeal and likability. You know, people will like him a lot more with that Venus there, right? And he'll be a lot more able to sort of grease the wheels of his organization with that Venus, because that's the beauty, the sociability, the feminine quality. It gives him a softness. Venus is also ruling the MC, so his career, as well as fifth lord. So children, fun, romance, fun and games, performance. So he likes to have a good time, but obviously Venus is not in good dignity in Aries. So it's like the way he likes to have a good time is probably not, you know, all that above boards. It's somewhat of a lesser dignified quality, because Venus is our indulgence. It's what we enjoy doing. For a man, it's women. So he really likes women, of course. Men with Sun conjunct Venus always like women. But his Sun's much stronger. This Venus is getting burned. So he's obviously, the Sun would be him, you know, because he's a man, especially. So it's like really dominating. This is kind of dominating women and dominating those weaker than him as well, because the Venus is getting burnt. That Sun is really strong and intense. The Venus will not stand up to that Sun. It's in the third house, so that's you know, close to siblings and whatnot. And where we said he stood up to his father to protect the siblings. And then we see also that the Pluto is making a harsh aspect. It's a sesquisquare to Sun and Venus, and so that is abuse. And Pluto is in Leo, and so Sun is ruling the 8th house of secrets and hidden things and power and control, right? And shared resources. So this is really, you know, talk about, you know, criminal house, very much 8th house. And obviously it's not always going to be that way. I have my Sun in the 8th house, and I'm not a criminal. I don't go down that route, but it can translate to that, because other people's resources, depends what planets are in there, depends you know, everything, what planets ruling it. In this case, Pluto's in the 8th house, making a bad aspect to the Sun, and the Sun is modifying this Pluto, so making it very powerful. So strong 8th house, but power, control in the 3rd house, short distance travel, intellect, but also 4th, empire, right? Homeland, turf, my homeland, this is mine, get off, right? He's king of his own house, and his own house is basically most of Mexico, right? That's his kingdom. Sun is the king, 4th is the kingdom, right? So he's, you know, and he's leader, he's Aries, so he's fire, he's you know, he's the exalted king of his homeland and the short distance travel, right? Traveling all over, he's all over, you know, he's all over the place. And yeah, and that's also his career, Venus, and his children are close by him, as well as romance, fun and games, performance. Yeah. Yeah, and that 8th house really tells a lot about his criminal inclinations, right? Especially with Pluto there. Pluto with bad aspect is really very strongly saying that there's some nefarious activities going on with other people's resources and whatnot. Okay. Theft, just in general criminal activity. 8th house is going to be like a very hard-hitting house, right? Scorpio's original house. It's kind of power, control, domination, right? In secret, hiding, underhanded things, shared resources. What's yours is mine. What's mine is mine. What's yours is mine. Right. So yeah, Moon is in Gemini, 0 degrees. 0 degrees Gemini Moon is probably going to be pretty crazy, right? Because 0 degrees, that's no limitation. That's the complete beginner's mind. And the moon and Geminis are just like wild, like just kind of very moody, very changeable, wacky, very intelligent, good at writing, communication, that sort of thing. I don't think he was into writing because he was illiterate, but the intellect, the thinking mind is enhanced, and very moody, very changeable, head on a swivel. It's in the 5th house again, so fun games, romance, children, and his mother. So 7th lord, personal relationships in the 5th house. That's generally good, and that's why his mother had a good relationship with his mother, right? Pluto in bad aspect to the sun is abusive father, especially with Leo, right? And sun in Aries shows a very dominant father, but mother is much more fun, caring, good relationship. Yeah. So, but he's a bit crazy with moon in 0 degrees Gemini, and like just moody, like really just like kind of. And his other nicknames, this is interesting, his other nickname was El Rapido. Rapido means fast. Aries is the fastest physical sign. Gemini is the fastest mental sign. So he's very fast, right? Physically, mentally, he's just like snappy, like changeable, right? Like on a dime, just like fury, right? Because both of these signs are just like, Aries can be like instantly angry, instantly punch you in the face, right? Literally or proverbially, right? It depends, right? They can just be like, pow, fire up. Gemini moon can at the same time, they can change moods like that. The whirlwind, right? Wind sign, air sign, whirlwind. And so it's like the flamethrower and the whirlwind. And then Mars also in Gemini. Mars in Gemini is very quick, very, very, now you're combining again the Aries physicality with the mental. So it's like very fast-minded, very physically quick. And so this is like, again, it's like, if he needs to take action, if he needs to like, shoot somebody in the head, he's just gonna whip out his gun and do it like that. Like, is no thought, just like, because Mars in Gemini it's ruled by the mind, but it is still Mars, so it's very fast. It's he's not really going to take much time to think about it. Let's see, and Mars also is pretty close to the 6th lord, the 6th ascendant. I'm sorry, 6th cusp. Sometimes my mind moves too fast for my mouth. But Mars in the 6th house is very aggressive, very fighty, very competitive. It's like, put up your dukes and fight, that kind of thing. It's just like, in Gemini, it is more intellectual, but the 6th house is very competitive. Mars there is quite strong. It's some people say that's the strongest position for Mars in the 6th house, because it's the 6th house is the house of enemies, the house of competition, and Mars wants to fight. And there's actually a mutual reception here between Mars and Mercury. Mercury's in Aries, Mars is in Gemini, so these two are trading places, 6th and 4th. He's bringing the fight to his home turf, homeland, right? You're going to fight over turf. He's going to fight over turf. This is his turf. He's the king, and then he's going to fight over it, right? So that's very strong. Mars, actually, it does have opposition to Saturn, which is his ascendant lord, right? Capricorn. Capricorn is the boss. Capricorn is the leader. Capricorn is the law. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, the authority, the boss, right? And it's in the 12th house. The 12th house is also secret, like the 8th house, but it deals more with deception and deceit and lies and dishonesty, creativity and mysticism and spirituality potentially, right? But he's not going that route. He's going more towards the lies, the deception, the deceit, right? Because that's the difference between the 8th and the 12th. The 8th is like hidden secrets, but it's like hard hitting and power and control. The 12th is secrets and hidden, but like it will give a mirage. And that's why you see a lot of actors and artists and storytellers, writers, creative types, musicians, and politicians, because politicians are always full of shit. Not always, but a lot of times. They're just actors. They're basically actors, politicians. And astrology proves it very much. But with Saturn here, Saturn, he's a natural authority. And he's authority of hidden things, of secret things, of foreign lands, and like mystical things. And I would say drugs and alcohol definitely are a part potentially of the 12th house, right? But not only that, his ascendant lord is Saturn. It's in Sagittarius. It's okay. Saturn is Sagittarius. It's also retrograde. So Saturn retrograde can often show somebody who's against the law, who doesn't mind going against the law, because the retrograde and Saturn is the law. So against the law. And the dignity is not great. So like, you know, he doesn't really have much concern for the law. He's very willing to break the law. And the, you know, the 12th house, secrecy, hidden things. The trine to the sun is very strong, actually, because there's no internal division between his ascendant lord, which is a very personal aspect of the self, and the sun, which is a very worldly, seen and heard part of the self. It's your main personality, right? These two sides of himself are really in perfect harmony, see, 14 degrees, right? So there's a lot of internal resonance, like with his decision making, with his path in life. He's not conflicted, right? And that's weakening. If the ascendant lord and the sun are in disharmony, there's inner conflict, and that weakens the person, right? There's perfect harmony here, and it's fire. So leadership, right, and adventure, and you know, not a boring moment for this guy. He's all about adventure and fire and authority, boss man. Saturn and the sun, they both have very strong leadership potential. A sun, an exalted sun, trine Saturn. That's the ascendant lord of Capricorn, right? That's a boss. He's a boss man, right? For sure. Yeah, so that's very strong. Saturn is ruling the ascendant, also the second house. So, you know, his security, his resources, his wealth, his assets are going to come from secret hidden things and exotic things, drugs, alcohol, right? So yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, again, moon ruling the 7th house and the 5th shows he does have good relationships with people, because they're going into, you know, he's, you know, even though he'll kill somebody in an instant. Generally speaking, he can also make friends really easily, because the energy is going into the 5th house, and 5th house is a fun house. It's a good house. It's a very, you know, warm, confident, fun game, you know, entertaining house, right? But this Mars is opposite Saturn, and that is violent. Pablo Escobar has that. Hillary Clinton has that, along with Pluto together. These people are violent, right? I have that. Mine's not super close, but it is there. And I'm not physically violent, but I can be quite aggressive, and I can like to yell at people. So there's that. Yeah, Mars and Saturn can be violent, or they can be, sometimes they can not be violent, but just very physically extreme physicality, because Mars is the physical element. Saturn is the restriction, but Saturn is also Mars's exaltation lord, Capricorn. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So Saturn makes Mars very strong. It limits it, but it makes it very strong. So you have like this supercharged Mars. That's, and with the opposition, that's, I mean, that's, that's in relation to other people. Like he's just like, this Mars is like super quick. And in the sixth house, it's just like, boom, right? Killing his enemies, right? Brutally and quickly. I mean, super fast, right? Mars is sextile to Venus, and that's quite good for physicality, right? That makes great, like passion and sexuality, physicality, physique. So, I mean, he was short, but, he's probably, physically quite able-bodied, right? And strong libido, I would say, as well. All right. This Mercury is very important because it's in Aries, so very aggressive. It's in the fourth house. So communicating, managing homeland, home turf, territory, because Mercury is the manager, the communicator, and it is trine Pluto, exact 28 degrees, right? That's really important because, and that's probably the best position, as well as with Saturn and Sun, because you don't want the conjunction with malefics because that's harmful. A conjunction with malefics is harmful. A trine is best. Sextile is second best. With malefics, with benefics, the conjunction is good, except with the sun, because then the sun burns it. But with other planets, right? But this is excellent because Pluto is the mastermind. Pluto is the type of thinking that wants to see the big picture and control it all. Power, control, deep, manipulative, masterminding intellect, with this in Aries. So it's like, he can be a very inspiring communicator. He can really influence people with Aries because Aries has the ability to spark other people. It's the fire starter. So he can win over people. He can influence them. And with the Pluto there, he can really mastermind everything, the whole big picture, because Pluto's the farthest planet. So what if Pluto's looking down on the Earth, it's got a bigger view than anyone. And Pluto really wants to control the whole board, as the master. And so this is like very manipulative, very criminal mastermind, because Pluto is in the eighth house. It's in Leo, so it's very proud, very egotistical, narcissistic even, but extremely controlling intellect, right? Of the homeland, of his turf, where he's the king. And he's got his bride by his side, right? And he's the king and he's the manager and he's calling the shots and he's communicating. Mercury is ruling the sixth house, so he's bringing in conflict, and the ninth house, so long distance travel, right? So he's managing all of that. He's defeating his enemies. He's bringing in long distance travel logistics into the home turf, right? Figuring out how to move drugs long distance into America, into Europe, tunnels, third house, ninth house, right? So yeah, it's all very strong. This square to the ascendant, it shows that he's very hardworking. Squares are a difficult aspect, but it's angular, right? Angular from the ascendant is strong, whether it's opposite or square. Those are the four angles. So it shows a lot of effort, hard work. Difficult, but still strong. And this shows that his and then besides his father, this is also his personality. The sun in Aries, and Pluto, and Venus, sesqui-square Pluto. So he's very abusive too, right? He is abusive. He has a temper, because the Aries, this Pluto and Leo, it's both fire signs, so it's trine by sign, but it's not trine by degree. By degree, it's anger. That's like anger, really angry. He can get angry. He can get abusive. He can get violent, right? And then Mars and Saturn also, right, show that. And then this Pluto is also square the ascendant. So again, like we can see this square, sesqui-square, sesqui-square. Very difficult, aggressive, destructive, abusive relationship that he has with people in general. It's just part of his nature. Yeah, and Pluto's also square the moon. I mean, it's a little out of sign, but by degree, Pluto is square the moon. So this guy is, I mean, he's violent, he's aggressive, he's abusive, and he's also very mastermind. Even though Pluto is in difficult aspect with moon and sun, it's still bringing the plutonic element, that deep thinking, especially in the 8th house. Really, it's really accentuated in the 8th house, Pluto, because there it gains extra power and control and psychological depth of thinking, right? All right. Neptune, it's conjunct the MC in the 10th house. Drugs, alcohol, it's in Scorpio, right? So power, control, the deep intensity. Neptune in Scorpio is what made drugs so big in the 60s, right? It just started in 57, but it was all through the 60s. Neptune in Scorpio. Drugs, heavy drug abuse in the 60s, right? Drugs and sex, free love, and all that. But Neptune is drugs and alcohol, especially in Scorpio, and is fully in the 10th house. I mean, it's very close to and so that's also deceiving the public. That's why he can get away with it. That's why he can escape and be so elusive to both his, the rival gang members and the military and the DEA. He's just putting out a mirage, and nobody can find him because they're just like, whoa, he's like this magician in public. Nobody can see him, nobody can find him. But definitely drugs, alcohol, and deception, lies, deceit, mirage, illusion, delusion, fantasy. Right? And anytime like somebody has something like this, they can fool the public. And so it's great for artists, any type of creative work. But if a politician has this, they're just lying, deceiving, bullshitting, and they love it. And that's Joe Biden, by the way. That's exactly Joe Biden. He's just a big fake liar. Can't do anything but lie. All right, Neptune is square Uranus, and so like in the early part of the Wikipedia said that he was a practical joker. That's definitely relates to this square here, because Uranus in the 7th, we could argue that it's in the 8th whole sign house, but it's 15 degrees, so 7th, 8th. But Uranus in the 7th likes to shock people because it's 7th house. And so it's personal relationships, very changeable in personal relationships, can really just sort of, first of all, they love unorthodox relationships of all kinds. They can really have, I think he married like an 18-year-old at one point when that was like his 3rd wife, and he was already like an adult. So that sort of thing. They can just like have any sort of unorthodox relationship that they want, marry, gay, bisexual, old, young, maybe they'll marry a horse, I don't know, right? But very unorthodox, but they like to be shocking with others in their relationships. So like quick in, quick out, But Uranus also relates to humor, because of it's co-ruler of Aquarius, it's absurdity, it's the shocking quality, and especially with the square to Neptune. So like practical jokes, deceit, lying to others, but in a very shocking kind of way. Yeah. Also disappearing suddenly, shocking, that Neptune's the disappearance. Uranus is the suddenly, so it just suddenly disappear from jail. Yeah. Right. So I mean that's pretty interesting too. His ability to deceive people quickly is quite strong. There's also a little bit of a connection to Mercury here, and that's quite brilliant as well. I mean, it's a square, but it's still connecting, and Mercury connected to Uranus is very brilliant, usually. Let's see here. There's a moon in conjunct to Neptune. Okay, so again, the connection to drugs and alcohol, but lies, deception, delusion, fantasy. He's probably living in somewhat of a la-la land himself, just deluding himself, believing in all kinds of nonsense, justifications for what he's doing, just making stuff up. Who knows? We're not really getting many personal details about the way he thought, but if you talk to him, he's probably pretty crazy. And with this moon in Gemini, in conjunct Neptune and Scorpio, he's probably insane, right? He's probably a psychopath. He's probably completely delusional and believes all sorts of crazy things. Let's see here. Mercury is also sesquisquare Saturn. That's going to give a very hard intellect. I mean, in a way that's probably good for being intellectually cold and detached and scientific, cold hard facts, dealing with logistics. But it's not very personable. It's not going to make him very easygoing or friendly in his communication. It's going to bring out the worst, the hardest. The communication is going to become, the most negative aspects of Saturn, which is cold, hard, authoritarian. His ability to communicate is very negatively. It's like ice crystal. He's cold communication, cold, hard, right? And then Mercury is also opposite Neptune. So lies, he'll lie. He's going to lie. He's a liar. Lie, deceive. He'll do anything. Like he could just say whatever he wants. And it's going to be like all masterminded, but full of deceit and deception. All right. His south node is in Taurus, and that's in the 5th house cusp. So, yeah, and then Venus, it's ruled by Venus, and Venus is in poor dignity. So like South Node in Taurus is like he grew up poor, right? But South Node in Taurus indicates, security and wealth and finances. But interestingly, I guess because of this Venus here, that it's not good. Venus is in detriment. It's opposite its rulership in Libra. It's combusted by the sun, so there's not much wealth here, and there's not much fun here, because 5th house is also a house of fun and romance and games and entertainment. But North Node is in Scorpio. Scorpio also relates to a lot of 8th house things, like power, control, authority, sexuality, stuff like that. It is in the 11th house. 11th cusp, so career success, income, groups, networks, right? So obsessed. North Node in the 11th house can indicate a very powerful community or group network. They can achieve a huge following because it's the 11th house. The 11th house is like the house of like almost like cult following or popularity. you know, career success, but like really like in the social sense, like you just people really depends what planets are there, but you can become like the leader of a group or a gang or a network, a community. And then with North Node, it's very obsessive. You can really get a very large following with North Node. So he's in charge of you know, very broad network of criminality. Scorpio, right? Scorpio is not necessarily criminality, but it certainly can be. Right? Ruled by Mars, Mars in the Gemini sixth house, Mars in mutual reception with Mercury. So like I already talked about, sixth and fourth, the conflict and homeland and long distance travel and community, group, network, criminal group, right? Bringing all those things together, trading places. So yeah, I mean, this is all fascinating. And then we didn't even talk about Jupiter. So Jupiter clearly in the 11th house, but retrograde and in detriment in Virgo. So he is philosophical, but not in a religious way, right? Because the retrograde, well, the Virgo especially, but also the retrograde will negate that. Like he believes in he has a philosophy, but it's not a religious one. It's not one that's connected to God. He's probably an atheist, and he's all about like being more analytical and intellectual and mental, because that's the realm of Virgo. So his philosophy is limited to the mind, the analysis, the intellect, and going against the grain. Jupiter also will make it, Jupiter and Virgo will make this all about travel, right? It's the Virgo is going to limit the expansion, so it's going to be much more practical, and so it's going to be much more about long distance travel. So he's going to be excel at adventure, at travel, right? At shipments, at that sort of thing. Jupiter is ruling the third house of short distance travel. So short distance travel is going into long distance travel. And it's dispositing his ascendant lord in 12th house. So hidden things, secret things, long distance travel, short distance travel, tunnels, plane, shipments, all of that, logistics of travel. And Jupiter excels wherever it is. So I mean, he's going to excel at that long distance travel and adventure, and short distance travel, long distance travel, foreign lands, exotic, right? And having a philosophy that applies more to material things. Virgo, limiting that he's not connecting to God. His philosophy is going into the physical. Right. So yeah, he's pioneering those long distance tunnels, short and long distance travel, foreign lands, exotic, hidden things, secret things. Okay. This Chiron is interesting. I don't know what his voice sounds like, but he might have a very unusual voice, both being in Aquarius and it's Chiron. It doesn't have any, I mean, there's a light square between the nodes, but it's kind of almost at the midpoint between Saturn and Sun, which is interesting because it's got a sextile to both. And it is his finances, so he's making money in unusual ways. We could say that Aquarius and Chiron will both be kind of weird, different, absurd, unusual. Yeah, this is definitely making money, having resources that are of the unusual, weird kind, in good relationship to his both Sun and Ascendant Lord Saturn. So that's interesting. You can make money with very unusual stuff, weird stuff. Drugs, I guess. Amphetamine, methamphetamine, cocaine, that sort of thing. All right. I think we touched on most of it. Let's see here. Yeah, there seems to be a light trine to the moon, but it's out of sign, but still that's probably good somewhat. Benefiting the mother, relationship with the mother. And definitely early childhood. There's a trine to the south node, so there's some success early childhood, but I think Morse, he got older because Mars and sixth house and defeating the enemies. And I'm not sure the exact timeline when he got successful, but in any case, let's look at the Draconic really quick. This is amazing. Pluto in Capricorn, right on, a few degrees from the ascendant in the 12th. Pluto in Capricorn is so heavy. I mean, we're experiencing, like, the whole world is like suffering Pluto in Capricorn right now. It's just too heavy. It's, Capricorn's the leadership, the authority, Pluto's the power and the control. And it's just like this dominating combination. It's just like, oh my God. Just like everyone's dreading it. It's just like, I think we're all going to be so happy when Pluto moves into Capricorn, Aquarius, because Aquarius has much more to do with the people and society, and that's when we're going to get a lot more power back. But this is so heavy, so controlling, so powerful, so dominating, right? Pluto and Capricorn in the ascendant. It's really, I mean, the Draconic chart really does, it really can tell a lot. Right? So Jupiter in Aquarius, it's approaching the second house cusp. Jupiter is excellent for wealth, obviously, second house. So that's quite good. Even in the first, it's going to be, if you say it's in the first house, then it's still strongly influencing him as a person. Jupiter in the first gains directional strength. Jupiter in the second is excellent for money. So both of those things were very strong for him. MC and Neptune in Pisces, drugs, alcohol, second, third. So resources, making money with drugs and alcohol. Well, not alcohol, but drugs. Right? And lies and deceit and deception. Very telling. Saturn in Aries conjunct Mercury. Saturn in Aries is really a tyrant because Aries is just too forceful for Saturn, right? Saturn is is exalted in Libra, so this is debilitated. It's just the tyrant, really poor dignity, right? Saturn's the leadership, but it's like leader by complete totalitarian rule, right? This is just the dictator, the tyrant, and it's conjunct. It's not too far from his sun, conjunct Mercury, so his communication is going to be very forceful, very dogmatic, very heavy, very tyrannical, just like do what he says or he'll kill you, like that sort of thing, right? Barking out orders, you better listen. Let's see here. Ascendant conjunct south node, that's probably, that's usually can be quite destructive. We've seen that a lot of times, especially when young. And then here again, Sun in Leo, so great leadership ability because Sun in Aries, Sun in Leo, right? In the 8th house, conjunct Pluto. This Pluto, he's very Plutonic. Power, control, mastermind, psychology, right? In 8th house, it's the other people's money, the shared resources. It's all mine, right? It's taking a negative side, negative expression of that whole 8th house stuff. It's more like we're gonna share all your wealth and make it mine, that sort of thing. Leo is all about the ego, right? So it's all about the self. Leo can be very generous. I'm not saying it's not. It can be very big-hearted and generous, but this is obviously much more the narcissistic side of Leo, right? Taking it all for himself. Criminal, shared resources, power, control, authority. Not authority, and just kingship. He's the king of the 8th house, the criminal, the secret hidden world. criminal and mastermind, king and mastermind. Mars and Moon are very prominent here. Mars is in Libra, so that's not good. So that's like passive aggressive or very passive or very aggressive, right? Obviously for him, it's very aggressive, right? Like Mars in Port Dignity just does not act well. It will not, like Mars in Capricorn can be very controlled. Like this can be like somebody who really hones their skills and their talents. Mars in Cancer or Libra can be somebody who's either weak and just totally doesn't show their Martian side of things, or if they do, it's like out of control, violent, abusive, aggressive, hyper aggressive, or sometimes like a mixture of both. And it is conjunct the MC, where it does gain directional strength. So this is kind of violent, I would say, potentially. Let's see here, and then Uranus conjunct ascendant Lord Saturn, rebellious and authoritative at the same time. Can lean on either one. Can be completely go against the law, or if he's the law, then you better listen. And very independent at the same time, very just unique and willing to completely do his own thing without regard to anyone else. That's Uranus. Uranus really doesn't consider. Uranus will be insulted if you're like, hey, why aren't you doing what everyone else is doing? You're like, Uranus is like, you think I'm that low that I'm just gonna follow everyone else? Heck no. I have to do my own thing, and I have to disregard everyone. That's Uranus, right? Uranus will not follow, right? Uranus has to do its own thing. It can be part of a group, but as a leader, not as a follower. And it probably doesn't like followers that much either, but this is draconic, so it's not as primary. But with Saturn definitely deals with the people. So this can be a leader. Uranus and Saturn together, a very rebellious leader. Yeah. Okay. That's pretty much it for El Chapo. I think, this really explains a lot, and how he was just a criminal mastermind and a boss man, and very plutonic drug lord, deceptive, lying, deceiving, delusional type of person. Right. Very strong, very powerful, very violent, very corrupt. So a little blurry here. There we go. All right, guys, that's it for El Chapo. I hope you enjoyed it. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below, and book a reading with me. My website is macroastrology.com, and my email is macrogoldmachine@yahoo.com. All right, that's it for now. Thanks. Bye.